Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Hi, Tim.
Hey there.
Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast.
Thank you.
Today we have Tim Frankovich. He is an epic fantasy writer. Do I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, I'm so excited to learn all about you and your books. Where would you like to start? I know you have at least 2 books, right?
I actually have 11.
11. Oh my goodness. This is going to take forever.
And number 12 comes out in May 6th. So
okay, congratulations. Yeah, I think I saw you just had a cover reveal, correct?
Yeah, just a couple days ago.
Fine. Well, we will have all those graphics so everyone can see them. The covers look amazing. Do you have any books right there that you can show us?
Yeah. You want me to just go through? There's 3 different series. I can talk about each one.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to start the most recent one, the original one, wherever is fine?
Let's see. Well, this was my first series. Get there. Heart of Fire. It was 4 books. It's epic fantasy. These covers were done by an artist that I just connected with online. You know, that's how this generally happens. I have a young adult, more of a science fantasy series. I wrote this one for what I wanted to read when I was riding my bike to the library.
Oh,
so it's a lot more action packed, a lot crazier. I mean, cybernetic dragons, you know. So it's currently 6 books, and number 7, the last one, is coming out later this year.
Wow, congratulations.
And this is my most recent. This is epic fantasy. This one has been out for almost a year, and the sequel comes out, like I said, May 6th. And that one is, I think, is the best thing I've written so far.
Well,
Hopefully I'm getting better.
That's always how it goes, right? You hone your craft. So start us at the beginning. Art of Fire is the first series. Give us a little background, character, setting.
Okay, the series has 2 main characters. It's a very, very multi point of view fantasy. The 2 characters, the first one is Marshall. He is born with a curse because in this world, all the laws are enforced by magic. If you commit a crime of any kind, whether, major crimes, stealing, murder, whatever, then you're hit with a magical curse that is proportional to how bad your crime was. Except with any kind of system like this, people in charge are going to twist it. And the lords of the land, when it was first inaugurated, tried to find a way to exempt themselves from the whole thing because, hey, we're ruling, we don't need to deal with this stuff. And all they managed to do was twist the magic enough that anything they did wrong, the curse would fall on their children. So Marshall is cursed because of something his father did. And his goal is to, one, get rid of his curse and hopefully get rid of the whole system. And, because there's no room for forgiveness or anything like that. The magic is just, boom, it happens no matter what you do. And the other one is Sari. She's a mage in training, and she's discovering that the magic, the whole system that we just talked about, is actually slowly breaking everything apart. That all the lands are in danger from the magic undergirding it, that everything might come apart. So she's trying to find the solution to that. And it's a 4-book series, and that's the main parts.
Fun. I'm guessing they team up at some point to.
Yeah, it takes a little while, but they get together.
Okay, neat. And I'm guessing the lords of the empire or kingdom or system don't want this to go away, correct?
No, that would ruin their power base. Yeah.
Right. And I'm guessing, but maybe most people don't want it to go away. I don't know. Do like the
Yeah.
common people,
Yeah, I
how do they
mean,
feel?
that's the big debate. Do we get rid of this because, hey, it keeps crime down and we don't have to have police or anything like that. So, but it doesn't give anybody any kind of choice, you
Right.
know. Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea?
That's a good question on that one. The
Just
the
came to
basic the basic world idea of that series actually came about when I was in college. A friend of mine were just brainstorming stuff together of a fantasy, and originally we were gonna, I don't know, he was an art student. He wanted to write a play. So we were just making stuff up and came up with the idea of these six lands and that they each had different magic powers, and the High King had all of them and all that kind of stuff. And I took that basis, and then I took the cursing idea and combined the two of them. And I honestly don't remember where the curse idea came from. That
Good.
one was just that one just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I can trace a lot of my ideas, you know, like all good writers, I steal a lot of them from other things. Some of my characters, some of the powers may sound similar to stuff that's from 1980s X-Men comics. But you know, wherever I can find an idea, I'll take it and think, but what if this, which I think is kind of the most important question an author can ask, what if?
Right. Little twist on things.
Yeah.
Fun. Well, tell us about your second series. So it looks more a little sci-fi-ish.
Yeah, it's I call it science fantasy because it has sci-fi elements and a little bit of magic mixed in. And it's like I said, I wrote it for myself. So I have a lot more fun with it because it's the way I set up the system, I can do almost anything I want as far as crazy tech and magic mixed together. And it's a very different style than my other books because it's written more, everything is more fast-paced, action-oriented in the sense of, hey, nothing's happened for, 3 or 4 pages. Something needs to blow up. It's it's uh it's a lot of fun to write, and it's different than what I do, the other stuff I do. So I kind of alternate writing the heavier, deeper epic fantasy, and then writing that because it stretches my imagination and lets me do different things. But it's a world, I started out with the idea of, one day I was on the internet and I saw a picture of a dragon with cybernetic parts. And my brain said, how did that happen? How does a dragon get cybernetic parts, right? Because he couldn't do it himself. So, then I started thinking, okay, so if humans did it for him, why would they do it? And so on. And it developed into this whole idea of these dragons that were ruling over the humans and forcing them to do things for them. And I came up with this area where there's these six dragons that rule everything. And naturally, some people don't like this and they want to rebel against them. But again, what do you do? How do you as a teenager rebel against, giant dragons with cybernetic parts that rule everything? So it made it really fun.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting. Can the dragons communicate? Can they talk?
oh yeah,
Or
yeah,
okay.
yeah, and they're pretty evil.
Okay.
So that it they have I also made it so that they've limited the technology that humans are allowed, because they don't want the humans to organize and everything, so they don't allow communication technology for humans, but and things like that. So it's like I said, it lets me do weird things where they don't have telephones, but they, somebody might have a cybernetic hand, and
Right. I
so
was going to say, yeah. So obviously they have advanced technology that they're using or
Mhm.
giving to the dragons, but
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So it's fun. It's just it's a much lighter read, it's much lighter, but it's fun to write because if I want to have somebody in a jetpack getting chased by a dragon, I can do that. So
Neat.
yeah. So
Sounds
and
very
it's
fast-paced action.
yeah, and it's all wrapping up hopefully by the end of this year. So
Okay. So the seventh one will be the finale.
yeah.
And is the first series Art of Fire? Is that one a complete series?
Yeah, it's 4 books, it's complete.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times people want the complete series before they
Yeah.
start, because they have to have the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at your sales and they're like this, and then the final book comes out. Whoa. Everybody wants to read it then.
Yeah, have to have the next book, right? On demand.
Yeah.
So what is your third series? What are you writing now?
Okay, so it started out with The Certainty of Blood, which is the novel that published last year. This one, it's the most, I guess it's the most adult series I've written, in that it's a lot more serious and I mean it deals with slavery right off the bat, so it's slavery and violence. Like you can't really do too much of that on the young adult level. So the main character is referred to as clanless. He had a name. He was, as a child, his name was Alden, but when he had his coming of age ceremony at age 13, they discovered that he had this strange power to kind of um, burn the blood in somebody's body, which is really nasty.
Yeah.
And so in this world, in this empire where he lives, the blood is everything. It's the source of magic. It's the source of it's their religious ceremonies all revolve around it. Everything is based on blood. And so he's regarded as basically an abomination because he messes with blood. And so, at 13 years old, he's taken away from his family and sold into slavery as an arena slave. And he has to grow up and try to survive long enough to earn his own freedom, which almost nobody ever does. And so along the way, he finds he is advised and helped by it's hard, I don't want to give too much away. It's kind of a supernatural type voice that's talking to him that he doesn't know who she is and where she comes from or anything like that. That helps him not be alone all the time. And then, it's on the back covers, I can say this much. He's going to work his way up to being the greatest fighter in the empire, and has like one fight left to win his freedom until the woman he loves says, you need to lose this fight. This guy that you're going to fight against, he's the chosen one, and he's going to overthrow the empire, and you need to let him win. So that's the setting of the conflict for the whole book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's surprising to me that, okay, the character could burn someone's blood, but he lets himself get taken. I don't know. It just seems like you would burn the people's blood and run away, but maybe then you would still have no place to live, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's complicated. He can only do it once their blood has been shed, once they've got a cut or something.
Oh, okay. So,
And
okay.
and as a boy, he doesn't know what's going on, and he gets, the slavery involves magic as well, so he can't just break out of it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was like, well, if you get to boil their blood in their body,
Yeah.
then okay.
Yeah, just run away. Yeah.
When it's outside the body, he can burn it without.
Yeah.
Got
And
it.
this one I spent so much time in preparation before it, whereas, like with the Dragon series, I can sit down and just start writing and have fun with it. This one, because I wanted everything to work right, I spent a long time researching, and I even have a flow chart of everything that connects together. So I wanted this world to be the most realistic one I had done yet, and I even I live near Houston, so I'm right around the corner from NASA. So I know some NASA scientists, and I went to a couple of them and said, "Hey, if the world is like this," and because I wanted a geostationary moon, so what would that do to the environment? What would that do to the seasons and everything? And so I got all this advice and everything. So that was a lot of fun.
Neat. So is it present day or
No,
what
it's
kind
it's
of
still
technology?
it's still it's kind of medieval, quasi medieval kind of, a little bit based on the Mongolian Empire, actually. That's where I drew a lot of the inspiration for their culture. But it's still going to deal with a lot of it's still going to be mostly familiar to people who read epic fantasy in general. So nothing too different.
Well, it's amazing that you said you're just releasing a book in May, and then a book from the last book from your other series will release at the end of the year. That's a lot of writing. Do you do this full time, or is this your side
No, no,
gig?
I wish I did. I wish I could. The but I when I'm on my regular schedule, I haven't been lately because I've been doing heavy editing and preparing for the new book to come out. But I usually write between 1,000 to 1,500 words a day.
Okay.
So
Uh,
that can usually work pretty well. The I actually didn't get started actually publishing these books until 2019.
okay. Wow,
Um,
11 books in 4 years.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it started out, yeah, there was a period where I started out just the first book, and then it was almost a year to the second one, but then after that it was pretty fast, until the end of, when was it? Not this past year, the year before. I broke my hand and had to have surgery, and then I couldn't
Oh
type.
no.
And so that slowed me down a lot for
Yeah.
a few months.
Slowed
But
down the typing, right?
yeah, I mean, I'd like to, I would like to have 2 to 3 books out every year, um, just because for one thing, I've discovered in independent publishing, you kind of almost have to build momentum and get people to read your books, and like you said, finish the series. And secondly, just because I have so many ideas and I want to use them all. So
Yeah. And it sounds like your current series, you said you did a lot of planning, you have a lot of flow charts. Do you know every scene that's going to happen, or do you just have like a general outline? How do you?
yeah, I don't, well, each one is kind of different. Like I said, with the young adult series, it's there's a lot more impromptu stuff that happens while I'm writing. Um, I needed a character in one scene to open a door for somebody, and then that character ended up sticking around for the rest of the book, things like that happen. But in general, I have, with the more serious books, I don't have a detailed plot. Um, I know, like, some people like Brandon Sanderson, his plots are basically books themselves. But like, the I have, I know the beginning of the book, I know the climax of the book, and I know a few points in between, that this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen to get to here. Everything in between, you know, surprises can happen.
Fun.
Yeah. So it's, I'm not a full-on plotter, and I'm not a full-on pantser, somewhere in between.
Awesome. And have you always written? It sounds like these have been in the works maybe a little before 2019.
Yeah, I mean, so the ideas have, I like to say that I started when I was in third grade, and I've said I wanted to draw a comic book, and my mom looked around and found the old brown grocery sacks and cut it up into pages and stapled it together. And so I drew a comic book of Godzilla fighting superheroes. And that was like, I did a bunch of those when I was a little kid, and that was where I got started. I've gotten a little better since then. Not with the art part. I still draw stick figures. The I've always wanted to write while I was growing up, and I would write a lot of things back then. There's probably some notebooks lying around at my parents' house somewhere. But everything I wrote back then was like entirely derivative. I would, things that were completely taking off on Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Narnia or something like that. And it was, nothing that would be publishable in any form.
Well, fan fiction, actually, a lot of people publish their fan fiction.
This is true. This is true. But so I would do all that, and then college came along, and I wrote a little bit during then. Then after I graduated, I got married, got a job, had kids, all that kind of stuff, and everything just got pushed to the side. Until I reached a point that I could say, you know what, I really, really still want to do this, and I have these ideas, and I should start writing. And so I did.
Time to be creative. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you have certain themes that you want people to pick up on in your books, like in your different series?
Somewhat, yeah. And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. The Heart of Fire series, that whole thing is basically the theme is basically grace versus law. Is there room for forgiveness, that kind of thing. There's going to be themes of heroism and things like that, general stuff like that in it as well, just because that's the way I write. I can't write like grim dark stuff. It's just part of who I am. So there are other things, but they just kind of come naturally.
Yeah, I was noticing that in each of your series, all of the people are in some sort of subservient culture or position where they have to maybe get out of that, or
that's a common thing.
System. So you said you have a book coming out in May, and then you'll have one in your other sci-fi series. What's on the horizon? I think the one in May is your second of the series.
It's the second, that one, yeah.
So will that one continue? Do you have that?
Yeah, there's going to be that's going to be a trilogy. I have a third book planned that I'll work on hopefully by middle of next year sometime. But that'll come out, and then after that, I'll be done with these two series, so it's be time for something completely new. Although, with the current series, I did set up, there's a recurring event in the world that happens every 30 years. So there may be a sequel series to it that happens, 30 years later.
Yeah, the next generation.
Right. I just have general vague ideas of that I think I would like to do. And I have another young adult series in mind, more fantasy, less sci-fi. And there's a lot of stuff competing. It just depends on what's going to come out first. I have a couple of kind of I don't know what you would call them, a little bit sci-fi, but not so much. There's one that involves kind of a weird twist on time travel, and one that involves a pocket dimension, things like that. But those will just be for fun. But eventually I'll get another epic fantasy series. So I have a couple ideas on that. My phone is full of little notes of, hey, story idea, half of them happen at 3 a.m.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you keep a journal or a notebook? But the phone, it works well too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let us know where we can find you and your books so people can look them up.
Yeah, I'm on Amazon, of course. I have my website is just timfrankovich.com. I have a Facebook author page, Tim Frankovich Author. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. Don't post there all that much, but and that I think that's it. LinkedIn,
Awesome.
Yeah.
So again, your first series is The Heart of Blood. The second series
Heart of
is
Fire.
Heart of Fire, sorry.
Yeah.
I got that one mixed up with The Certainty of Blood.
Yeah, it's easy.
Second series is Viridian, is that correct?
Viridia is the first book. The series name is Dragon Tech Lore.
Dragon Tech Lore. And the third series starts, the first book is The Certainty of Blood. What is the series?
The series doesn't actually have a name.
Okay.
For the second book, I've just put The Certainty of Blood Book 2 underneath the main title.
Okay, that makes sense. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here, Tim. It was exciting to learn about your work, and I'm sure everyone will be following you. I know I will be.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right, appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.